Ladies and gentlemen, the sugar high is crashing, and what a crash it is. The radical liberal ticket, the most radical and liberal ticket in American political history. We're learning more and more about what it really means. Look, most of you on the right side, because you watch and listen to this program, you are among the most intellectually mature members in all of podcast land. You get it. You've known this since the 4 years you've been with me on this program. The onion being peeled back, and what a stinky, raunchy mess it is. Tim Walz, we're going to talk about him, what he really means, what people are saying about him in his own state of Minnesota. The truth is out there. The fake and demanded enthusiasm that you've seen cascade down upon us is coming to a crashing halt because, as it always does, reality is setting in. Ladies and gentlemen, the right side with Doug Billings is now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right side with Doug Billings, right side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to the Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, you get that sense of the onion being peeled back, the truth being exposed, the raunchy, the stench that you smell, the tears in your eyes are from the fact that our joy and our happiness, a couple of words that the radical left are like to throw around these days because they feel as if they want you to believe that Kamala and Tim are going to restore joy and happiness to America. This is a typical Democrat liberal playbook material, causing chaos, causing purposeful chaos, and then pretending as if they're interested to fix it, usually waiting until around this time, an election year. When election season is upon us, oh, yeah, all they want to do is act like joy and happiness are what the radical left want to bring, when all we have to do is take a look around us. The last 3.5, almost 4 years, nothing but purposeful chaos, unhappiness. They have robbed us. They have robbed America and we the people of joy and happiness. And now they dare to claim to say that they have the ticket that is going to restore joy and happiness to America. It's absolutely infuriating. We know they insult us every time they say it. You, my friends, know the truth. And their sugar high is crashing. The sugar high that they've had since Kamala was given the nomination. We're going to talk about this, and we are all given a civics lesson in America. We're going to hear from people who are in the states, Minnesota, California, other radical places that the Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, has taken control of power, and the absolute horror and tragedy, ultimately, that these leaders impose upon the people within their state. So the radical left fake and demanded enthusiasm for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is coming to an end. And I predicted that it would. They have only now, the only ones remaining out there talking about any are the intellectually immature. They've had the walking dead gatekeeper, Joe Biden, for the last 3.5 years. And of course, they are excited that they have somebody who can walk up a flight of stairs without falling down. They have someone who can at least talk from a stage, okay? Now, Kamala Harris is the worst public speaker among all of those who aren't plagued by dementia. She's the worst public speaker in all of politics. She cannot, you've seen the clips on social media. She cannot carry on a conversation unless she's got notes or a teleprompter in front of her. She has not conducted a press conference in 19 days because she is in, I'm telling you, in the back rooms and the back hallways of the radical left party, prepping herself while they try to scrub every comment and rebrand and whitewash every comment that she's made, every speech she's given, every interview that she's given, so that they can try to answer the debacle that she is. Remember, they don't want her. No one in the liberal hierarchy wants her, but they've painted themselves into this DEI corner. Biden himself said, I'm not going to put anybody else in the position of vice presidency unless it's a woman. And so they doubled down. They put a woman in there. Oh, and a woman of color, a minority, and so forth. They can't get rid of her. The radical left foundation of that party will not allow it. So now the hierarchy has bought into it, and they have conducted massive campaigns within the party to put forth talking points and tell everyone on social media, X, and everywhere else, and not to mention the legacy news, here's what you will say. And you've got to fake it. You got to put forth this enthusiasm. We demand it of you. She's the only person we've got. We can't do away with her. You've heard me talk about this for the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to continue to harp on it because it's the absolute truth. We're reminding you that Kamala Harris is an absentee vice president. She has turned that office into the vice pretendership. She's not shown up at the border, and yes, she was the border czar. Millions of people also within Minnesota and throughout the Republic are reminding us about what Governor Tim Walz really stands for. They are both more radical than Bernie Sanders, which isn't really saying much by comparison when you look at people like Ilhan Omar. They are much more radical than her. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the radical liberal communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, has no interest in listening to the American people. They have no interest in listening to the membership of the common folk within their own party. They clearly didn't listen to members of their party with regards to how they inserted Kamala, because not one person, not one common folk person in the Democrat Communist Socialist Party was consulted or asked about whether or not they wanted Kamala Harris as their nominee. So she was selected in the dead of night on a Skype call with the corrupt delegates within this Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, and, of course, the members of that liberal hierarchy, their elites who are on the call demanding that they all adhere to the demands of the party and nominate Kamala. So you think about that. The radical liberal movement within this country, from the media to the celebrity class to the elected class, and all of the social media influencers, none of them, not even one, was given a choice. And now they're all asked to give fake enthusiasm and demanded upon them to go out and post enthusiasm everywhere you can. And when you look at what they say, this is important. You know, for those of you who know me, I have a little bit of a pet peeve with regards to the fact that the radical liberal left never refers to America as what she really is, and that is a republic. None of the radical left communist socialists, all of these formerly known Democrats, none of them call America a republic. They refer to her only as a democracy. And it might seem like a simple, maybe it's a non-critical issue. It appears as if I'm, trying to make a mountain out of a molehill here. But I can assure you, it is a very critical issue. And it's at its core, there resides within this issue a diabolical meaning and purpose that the radical left liberal hierarchy wants to accomplish. And that is the mislabeling of America. Because at the end of the day, they want to strip America away from the intent of the founding fathers, away from the divine providence of God. Our founders, my friends, look, they had very specific and heated debate and conversations about America not becoming a democracy. Because within a democracy, equal voice and equal rights can be squashed by a minority who's in charge. In a constitutional and representational republic, the voices of we the people are heard. The republic, which we all, I presume that we all love it. Sometimes when you look at what the radical left does, it's clear they don't. But for you and me, and for millions of people on the streets of America who may well have voted for Obama or Joe Biden, This is at a point now, this nightmare that they've cast upon us, that millions of people are waking up from that, and they're thinking, wait a minute, this is not at all what I signed up for. And the other side knows it. And so you'll see them talk not only about fake enthusiasm and demanded loyalty, but you'll see them post polls. All the polls now favor Kamala in their view. They'll post all of these polls from this company, from Acme Polling to Mom and Shop Pop Polling Company, and all of these polls that use terrible methodology, but they have the results they want. And they forget something called response bias, which is embedded in these kinds of polls that are aimed at people who want commune socialism, formerly known as Democrat principles, to reside and be instilled within America. They go to their own people and ask them these questions. But the polls come out, and so they're saying, I'm here to tell you, don't believe it, because every reputable poll that uses sound methodology and takes into account response bias is a poll that you'll see Trump leading. Not to mention your own gut feeling. You can sense it, because a lot of you around the country are going, how in the world can anybody in their right mind support what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz represent? Well, there you go. Most people with a good heart, mind, and soul don't. And those are the people, the vast majority, mind you, who oftentimes remain silent until Election Day. So try as best you can to ignore the clutter, but you'll notice these members, these people who claim to be Americans, who are really members of the Commune Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, they never, and I mean, words are important, they never use the word republic when trying to describe what America really is, primarily because they don't want the people, they don't want we the people to have a role in the republic. And because the word republic itself obviously is the root word of the word Republican. They can't have that. Oh no, we can't say republic because it's the root word of Republican, and we're under strict orders from the hierarchy and the elites that we can't say that word. We can't say it. We can't say anything. So you see even members of the celebrity class, the people that have really bought into this movement, Rob Reiner, Mark Hamill, Stephen King, all of the kooks, Doug Billings, did you watch that? He's on to us. He's a threat to our democracy. So forth and so on. President Trump, a threat to democracy. We don't have a democracy. The radical left, the liberal mob, you can see right through it. And you can see them do this through, if you take a look at history. The radical left, speaking of history, when you look back upon it, the radical left rarely want to limit the powers of government. In fact, they go to great lengths most of the time to unleash and to increase the powers of government. Our Constitution was drafted by brilliant men and signed by 56 patriots who wanted to limit the powers of government because they saw what tyranny can do. So a fundamental principle of a constitutional republic is a protection of minority rights against the potential of tyranny of the majority. And that design, which was specifically put in place by our founders, is a countermeasure against direct democracy, where the majority rules could potentially ride roughshod over the minority. And that's what they try to do. You see it all the time in America from the radical liberal party today. The United States Constitution outlines various checks and balances. You know this. It's intended to prevent any single branch of government from gaining an absolute power hold on the others. Thereby, it protects us and our individual rights from being infringed upon by a majority mob vote. And in America, the only political party, the only one who on a regular basis attacks or vows to deconstruct or somehow do away with all of these balances is the Commune Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. From expanding the Supreme Court, remember that? That's a real beauty of an idea, in direct violation of what the founders intended. Or if they're not trying to expand the Supreme Court, they're trying to invoke the threat of term limits upon the justices of the Supreme Court. The radical left makes no secret about their desire to transform America away from the founding fathers, much less the intent of the divine providence of God himself. And another key element of our Republican form of government, which is what we have a Republican form of government. Makes sense because we're a republic, but the radical left don't ever say those words. No, we can't say it's democracy. We're in a democracy. We're not. And they don't say the word Republican, or a Republican form of government. We also have, much to their chagrin, is something called the separation of powers. Among all of the branches of government, we're meant to have a balance, folks. Have you felt as if the American Republic has been in balance the last 3.5 years? Is there a balance in the fact that a major political party inserted a candidate without any voice of its membership? Is that balance? Or does that sound like one-sided tyranny? The legislative branch makes the laws, the executive branch enforces the laws, and the judiciary interprets the laws. Each branch operates independently. So when you begin to see legislators in the United States Congress begin to say, we're going to stack the court, expand the court, do away with the court, put term limits on, that's all unconstitutional. It's all against the principles that were laid out by the framers of the Constitution itself. Yet they turn everything against us and blame Trump and us as being against the Constitution. We know better. We know better. But all of this now becomes a little troublesome for the radical liberal, especially the members of their hierarchy and the elites within there who want to conglomerate power unto themselves and make decisions among themselves without input, without representation from any of their party membership. And you saw it, or you heard about it, with the selection of Kamala, right? That's the primary example of this civics lesson that we're enjoying right now, watching, right? Harris is the Democrat nominee for the presidency, right? And the electoral process was completely ignored by that party. Not one person, not one member. Unless you were a member of the delegate faction or the hierarchy, none of the people in this country who claim to be Democrats were given a choice. And that's a problem. And citizens are rising up against that. This convention they're going to have next week, this is not a foregone conclusion for Kamala. Black Lives Matter has already come out and said they're not going to support her, precisely because of the things I'm telling you now. A lot more to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, on these topics. Listen, please consider heading over to DougBillings.us. Prayerfully consider heading over. That's where my website is there. You can get in touch with me. You can chat with me, meet me. There's a store over there. But more importantly, prayerfully consider setting up a monthly recurring donation over there at DougBillings.us. It's how I make a living, and it's how I produce and deliver the show. The show, of course, I never charge you for it. It's always free. So what is the truth worth to you? What is proper analysis of what you won't see in the legacy media worth to you? DougBillings.us. Please head over there today. I'll be right back right after this. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that you could change the trajectory of your aging process? Look and feel better, live younger, be more active, less pain when you move around, sleep better, diminish the lines and the wrinkles on your face? Really? This is what I'm telling you. It's possible. You see, low stem cell activity happens when we get older, and it could be causing many of the health problems that some people have in the world today. Because as we get older, we have less stem cell activity, which means we age faster and we heal slower. The secret is a clinically proven and patented phototherapy non-transdermal patch, whose technology is the result of over 90 clinical studies and over 20 years of research. Your healthier life can begin today, and you can discover true age reversal. Age reversal, ladies and gentlemen. Please go to liveyoungerwithdoug.us. liveyoungerwithdoug.us, ladies and gentlemen. Get over there today. Or if you'd like, text my name, Doug, to 41372. Doug, text it, 41372. And get over to liveyoungerwithdoug.us. Get younger, feel younger. I'm doing it. I'm wearing this patch. I feel great. And so will you. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle. that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings, coming to you from the fruited plains of America.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Saving the Republic with every breath we take and every move we make. You and me, my friends, in this together. Bidenomics now is called Harrisomics, right? She is now the standard bearer of the catastrophe and the chaos that is coming down upon us. DougsGold.com, ladies and gentlemen. Doug's Gold. You need to diversify your portfolio for retirement, your savings. You can't trust where the economy is going, but gold is the biblical standard of money. Head over to DougsGold.com and just get some information. It's not a hard sell. Want to try to have your back. I know that you've got mine. And like I say, we are in this together. So head on over there, ladies and gentlemen. DougsGold.com. So the radical left Communist Socialist Party, formerly known as Democrats, have no interest in the electoral system in this republic, because in that electoral process, it is distinctly where the United States is formed, if you will, as a republic. Citizens here, as you know, we don't vote directly for laws and policies, but instead we elect representatives who go to Washington supposedly with our best interests at heart and in mind, supposed to make decisions based on our behalf. We all know the problems that are there. We try to deal. It's nothing new. These are, the ebb and flow of politics since this republic was founded. The filter, theoretically, that we have with the electoral process and electing these legislators that go to Washington, D.C., theoretically places an informal decision-making body between the desires of the population, the mob, right, and the law, which aligns with the characteristics of a republic, not a democracy. If the people of a certain state, Kansas, California, Missouri, Michigan, whatever, if a people of a state believe that a representative is not following the will of the people of that state bear the responsibility to either vote that representative out or let him or her stay. And so it is with issues that we face. Abortion is another one that's always on the minds of everyone, and clearly with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, abortion and the laws surrounding it is a prime example. But if we're imagining ourselves in this civics lesson today that I'm giving you and taking with you, the abortion issue was properly returned to the states for the people of each state to make a decision about. So President Trump has done the right thing. If we believe that God inspired the men who drafted our Constitution, we certainly then have to believe that God had a process and a purpose and a reason behind giving the states in this republic the ability to chart their own course with how and why people vote. So each state will have the ability now to determine whether or not abortion is legal or not. The radical left, when they say that Trump and the Supreme Court stripped women of their constitutional rights, is lying to you. No right to abortion was stripped just because the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. That is a lie. The Supreme Court fixed a faulty piece of legislation, which was Roe v. Wade, because it said that the federal government had the right to mandate that abortion would be legal. And ladies and gentlemen, if you believe that God founded the republic and inspired 56 men to draft our founding documents, then you've got to go with the fact that God wants this decision to reside within the states and not from the federal government. It just as much as it wasn't right for Roe v. Wade to be passed and the federal government given blanket authority to each state and every person in the country to have an abortion, so too would it be unconstitutional if the federal government would be to issue a ban on abortion in all states. It's unconstitutional, and it's not the intent of God and the founding fathers. God wants people within each state to rise up and stand for righteousness and to vote people into office who will do away with abortion. And I'm not, look, election integrity issues aside, that's a topic, of course, we know is out there, but we have got to work and we have got to engage in what I call determined patriotism. And when we look at what Harris and Walz represent, the most dreadful ticket of terror that we have ever faced in this republic, we had better be motivated. And it's not going to be fixed overnight. None of this is, but it is going to be fixed. Because there are millions upon millions of people out there who have risen up out of this nightmare that has been purposefully cast down upon us by people like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And because this rule of law, by the way, is a cornerstone of what a republic is, and because that's a pesky little fact that gets in the way for radicals like Tim Walz, liberals within America attempt to defund the rule of law. They can't have the police in our way. They can't have border agents in the way of what purposeful chaos they want to cascade down upon us. The continuous impact of these foundational elements that the radical left thrusts upon us helps ensure that the function of the Liberal Party says they live on chaos and crisis. They create it and they perpetuate it. And then when an election year comes around, they pretend like they want to fix it. We can see it a mile away. Americans are not stupid. But the essence of our republic means that the functional elements within our government ensure that the United States itself can function. And it's not driven by popular opinion. It's not driven by the mob. It's steered through established and systematic laws and practices within the rubrics of our founding documents. It tempers our republic tempers the swaying and the ebb and flow of these populists' whims that come out, trends and factions that one day are popular, the next day they're not, and it means that it meshes with, certainly there are democratic ideals that we all hold to, where every voice has a chance to be heard through elected representation, but it's within what's the word? It's a synthesis of Republican principles and democratic values. That's what I'm looking for. So we have Republican principles of a republic. And I'm not talking about the party of Republicans. I'm talking about we have a Republican form of government, ladies and gentlemen. We're a republic. Again, the left won't want to say that because they don't dare utter the word republic or Republican. No. It's like garlic in a vampire right there. You can't say that. But we have a Republican principled government that has democratic values within it. And that helps to shape the policies that both have a collective measure and a constitutional guideline behind them. I hope that makes sense. But the United States' role of when we use the word democracy is always within the boundaries of the republic, which we are. It embodies the essence of the electoral process, that everyone has a voice that can be heard, that no one will be squelched by the mob, that we the people are the ones who are the government, not the feds, not the elected class. We're a republic that does not embody a pure form of democracy, where laws and policies are directly, in a democracy, laws and so forth are directly affected by the popular vote. That's not us. That is not what the founders intended. It is not what the divine providence of God intended. Our republic enshrines a democratic principle through the election of representatives who in turn are supposed to legislate and govern from the will of the people. So, but the left will never say this. They're not going to admit it. They're not going to talk about it. And when they don't, and because they don't, they are fundamentally trying to transform us away from this republic. This is my soapbox and my pet peeve. And I think that it goes unnoticed most of the time. You see on the news stations, because we're in an election season, they have specials on and so forth. Democracy 2024. It's a misnomer. We're not a democracy. Republic. We the people, we express our preferences through voting, which is not only a God-given right, but it is a civic duty that we always engage in that right to vote. And voting emphasizes that democratic spirit within the framework of our constitutional republic. And I think the process secures a pathway for public sentiment to guide the legislative agenda when it's done right. We have to fire those that we all know there's legislators in there that don't follow the will of the people. I'm not making any. Absolutely that is a true problem. And we need to, again, we can't become possessed by the demon of cynicism or apathy. We always have to engage. We must, as I say, have determined patriotism and be determined about that. The government derives its power from the consent of the governed. Sound familiar? That's right. The government derives its power from the consent of the governed. So a lesson in civics. We saw it play out when Kamala was inserted. The radical left Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, did not give any of its membership a voice in that selection. And that should frighten the heck out of all of us. Because if they're not going to give their own party a voice, what are they going to do if they gain power? We have seen it already. Unilateral decisions without the will of the people, opening borders, canceling energy independence, foreign policy that creates wars instead of peace. And they dare to say they're the party that brings happiness and joy. BS nonsense. That's exactly the opposite. They rob America, and they rob we the people of our joy and our happiness. And like I said earlier in the show, it's this radical, liberal, communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, that has no intent to allow the public to share in its hierarchical and elite governance of not only their party, but the country. That's why when we disagree with radical liberals, have you noticed this? If you as a conservative American disagree with a radical liberal, they go to great lengths to cancel you. They attempt to silence you, to gaslight you, to bully you, and to outright cancel. If to make a living, to make an appearance, social media accounts, all squashed. The truth, they can't have the truth. The truth binds them up too much. They need to be set free by implementing intentional crisis and chaos and then pretending to want to solve it. And that's why, in part, because of this desire for them and their hierarchy and the elites within that hierarchy, they will never say the word republic. They will try to transform us away from it every chance they get. Remember, Barack Obama was the first one to say it out loud, but there was many, many other liberals before him who were trying to do it behind the scenes. He said that that America needs to be fundamentally transformed. No, thank you, it does not. The founders and God were pretty clear and pretty brilliant in what they've designed. We do not need to be fundamentally transformed. Thank you. But they want to. When they say that, it's not just about, the image of America. When they say fundamentally transform, part of what they're saying is that they want to conglomerate power unto themselves, and that there can be no dissent, and that the state must always be in control. The federal government must always be to heck with states' rights, although that's what God and the founders intended. States' rights are supreme to the federal government. No, not according to liberals. And part of the reason why they want chaos and crisis is because they feel as when that happens, people are afraid and they turn to the government for help. Oh, we need the government to come in and save us. And so big government grows, and federal government and dependency upon the government grows. So today, they don't really, when we're in this election season, and I've said to you a couple of times over the last few days, maybe a week or so since Kamala was inserted, no one likes her on the left. No one. I mean, I could show you clip after clip after clip after montage of people on the left saying she's the worst political candidate in history. She's far too liberal. She's a terrible public speaker. She can't win. She's not smart. It goes on and on and on. But remember, she's a DEI hire. They can't back out of that corner. And here's the part that sounds counterintuitive. And again, I've said this before, but I want to repeat it for you. The presidency is not their primary goal here. It's their second goal. Their first goal is to move the political needle and the social needle in our country further to the left. And so what better way to do that than to gather the two most liberal candidates in American political history and put them together on this ticket of terror? Now, they're going to try to pursue and win this election with everything they've got. Don't get me wrong. It's bonus points if they get the presidency. But their primary goal is to move the political needle and the social needle in this country further to the left. And that means, how do they do it? What's the easiest way for them to move the needle to the left? Purposeful chaos and crisis. We've seen it time and time again over these last 3.5 years. Hey, I'm up against a break. I'm going to do more about this. I'm on a soapbox about all this. I'm wound up about it. I know you can tell. Take a time out after this show. Share this show. If you're on YouTube, if you're on X, subscribe to my channels, my social media channels, and follow me. Share these programs. WorldViewTube.com. Follow them. Go over. Check it out. Share the programming. Spreely TV and DougBillings.us. Please don't forget to head over there and set up a monthly recurring donation at DougBillings.us. I will be right back. Stay with me. Cheers.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
The Right Side with Doug Billings, where we meet in determined prayer and determined patriotism.
That's right on, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Doug Billings, determined prayer, determined patriotism. That's how we roll over here. Thank you for being with me today. So, talking about the Republic, the civics lesson that was gracefully given to us by the Communist Socialists, formerly known as Democrat Party, but how that is a dangerous track to be on and what we should be looking for, this purposeful chaos, the purposeful crisis that they've cast upon us, headed up by the two most liberal politicians in American political history, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So liberals believe, ladies and gentlemen, let me put it this way, the liberal hierarchy, the people, the elites within that party, they believe that chaos and crisis are necessary because it causes fear among people. And when they get enough fear amongst the people, that helps, in their view and in their world, that helps drive people towards the government, to depend on the government for help. They don't want to, remember the old days where neighbor would take care of neighbor. Someone's barn burns down, your neighbors would help rebuild. If somebody's business goes under, your neighbors were there to help take care of it, and get you through that rough time. For the liberals, that's the role of the government. And it's not intended to be so, causing people to forget the very power they have within these election seasons to get rid of the radical left element. That the radical left element, by the way, has literally This is not just my opinion. This is a matter of fact. The radical left liberal movement in their policies, platform, and politics have removed God from their platform. And they want to, I challenge you to prove me wrong. They want purposeful chaos. They want it because they believe it helps drive the needle further to the left and it causes people to become dependent upon the government. Now, case in point, look at California. There's a radical liberal governor out there, Gavin Newsom, who's turned a beautiful state into one of the most deprived and desperate cisterns of crime and drugs and homelessness in the world. California has more homeless people in it than any other place on the planet except for Turkey. Imagine that. Now, there's residents in California, good intending people. And many of these people have a D after their name. They think they're Democrats. They voted Democrat in the past. But I'm telling you that multiple millions of these people are waking up. And these people aren't a product. These people's voices aren't heard in the polls that you're seeing thrown out there on social media. They're not. Those polls are done primarily and among Democrats who want this communist-socialist trend to continue. But there are good-hearted and well-intended people in California, in Oregon, in Washington State, everywhere, Minnesota, who are looking around at the chaos that the radical communist-socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, has cast down upon them, and they're saying to themselves and out loud, not what I had in mind. This is not good. It's not good for me. It's not good for business. It's not good for life. It's not good. It does not bring about joy and happiness. Jillian Michaels, many of you know her. She is a fitness guru. She's been on television for several years. She used to live in California, and she came out the other day and explained what millions upon millions of people, multiple dozens of millions of people who voted for Biden, who are waking up to the nightmare and are now saying no more. This is too much, not what I had in mind. Logan, let's play clip one. Jillian Michaels, ladies and gentlemen. Take a listen to her.
I know a f***ed up situation when I see one, and it's a mess. California got too crazy for me. I grew up here. I'm a woman. I'm a gay woman. My mom's a Jew. My dad's an Arab. I have a black kid. I hold 1 million cards in your game of woke victimology poker. When you have me running from home, maybe it's gone way too far. I get so riled up because I'm a Californian. I was born in this state. I'm a water baby. I love the ocean. I grew up in the ocean. You know, a lot of my friends moved to Texas, Tennessee, and I tried it, but there's no ocean. I'm like, no. Which is how I ended up in Miami. I was like, oh, ocean. Years ago, my business partner left California because of taxes. He's like, you're insane. Leave. And I was like, no way. This is home. He left 10 years ago because of that. I didn't. I was like, I'll pay it because this is home for me. So when I see my state in shambles, I'm pretty angry about it. And it's very interesting because people love to say like, oh, she's far right. Based on what? If you think I'm far right because I want cop killers in jail, if you think that I'm far right because I don't want a 24-year-old male touching my 14-year-old son, I've talked about some of these laws that are just mad. If you think that I'm far right because I want PG&E held accountable for the fire that burned down my home, I guess I'm far right. You got me. You have a state that's constantly talking about drought, and yet we're not kicking big ag out of the state and almonds. And this is not like your mom and pop farmer. This is big ag, right? Monster corporations that are taking 80+% of the state's water. Now, why do you think? I mean, could it be campaign contributions from big ag to the right politicians. Come on. There's just so many different problems here, and you're seeing them play out in real time. Michael Schellenberger is brilliant. Obviously, he's an expert on the homelessness crisis here. But it's not from a place of, oh, the homelessness disgusting, I don't want to see it. The people are not getting the help they need. It's a disaster. He's like, this is what happened to helping the most vulnerable community. Live on the street, go with God, where you'll get raped and this and that. All these horrible things will happen to you, and you have no care. And generally, they're addicts and need care, or they have mental illness and they need care. It's just a mess.
That is a mess, and it's tragic, and your heart breaks for the people out in California. It's a beautiful state, and the radical, liberal, commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat agenda is the reason why that's happening. It's a tragedy, and she's right. Jillian Michaels is right. The radical left party will claim they're all about helping the most vulnerable. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they are the ones that create the most vulnerable. They're the ones that threaten our humanity. They claim that they're the party that will increase human dignity. Nonsense. Everything that they do diminishes human dignity. Look at the border. Look at what prices of food are. You can't afford to go eat. You can't afford to put fuel in your vehicle. The border. Every state in this nation is now a border state. The dilution of the American identity itself is at risk. We could say the same things about Oregon, about Washington State. Clearly, we can learn and say a lot about what went on in Minnesota under the leadership of Governor Tim Walz, and we will continue to talk about that. Tim Walz is not a moderate, ladies and gentlemen, not even close. He's more radically liberal than Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar combined. Listen, up in Minnesota, there is a woman running for office, Dalia Al-Akidi, and she is running against Ilhan Omar. Now, Dalia is a Republican. Obviously, Ilhan Omar is not. I want you to listen to how she describes the state of play up in Minnesota, and especially the role that Tim Walz had in it. So this is Dalia Al-Akidi. She's a candidate for Congress from the state of Minnesota. Clip number 2, Logan.
Governor Walz has been portrayed in the media as kind of a moderate, as a kind of down the middle kind of person, but yet he has associated and supported Ilhan Omar. Do you see any big difference between Walz's policies and Omar's policies? Are they different? Are they the same? Are they similar?
Saying Walz is moderate, just like saying Ilhan Omar is pro-Israel. If you believe that, then you would believe that. Of course, Walz wasn't chosen because of his high profile. They match. I mean, his policies. If we look at what happened in our district in Minneapolis, at least for the past 3 years, it's because of Governor Walz's policies. It was on his watch when the whole world watched our city being burned, and he didn't do anything. He didn't support our law enforcement. He didn't support us. Look at the violence rate and the crime rate, and we are suffering until this moment. And I invite everybody who supports Walz, I invite them to come and see Minneapolis and see how sad our downtown is. Let alone the scandals, let alone the corruption, and he's far from moderate. We wish that we had a moderate governor, but on the contrary, that's what his policies led us to where we are today.
Now, you see, there are reasonable people who come into this country legally who have the proper perspective. Governor Tim Walz has blood on his hands. He is not the image of this friendly grandfather that has been cast upon us by the radical left. Their PR department trying to cast a gentle old man. He's a moderate. He's going to bring joy and happiness. Look at the way they smile together, ladies and gentlemen. Look at them on stage. Finally, joy and happiness has returned. They actually insult our intelligence when they suggest such things. All we have to do is look at evidence of the obvious. And here we saw this woman, Dalia Al-Akidi, lay it out. Governor Tim Walz is not a moderate. She says Tim Walz is a moderate. Saying that Tim Walz is a moderate is like saying that Ilhan Omar is pro-Israel, right? It's not true. Doesn't make sense. And we are waking up. Millions upon millions of people waking up to the debauchery, to the absolute abhorrent policies and the anti-American policies of the radical left. We see it time and time again. And finally, one last clip for you, ladies and gentlemen. The reason I'm showing you these is because these are people that have seen these people and their policies in action. I know that not everybody can, you remember the news, certainly from 2020, that summer of fire and burning. Governor Tim Walz did nothing. He could have stopped it. Come on. And it's only in cities that are run, led, and managed by this communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, where the violence was allowed to take place and continue. It's purposeful chaos. They want to move the needle to the left politically and socially, and they want to drive us to dependency upon the government. And they want to burn it down, because once it's burnt down, they can swoop in. And this is all part of the Build Back Better mantra. And you know that they left out that first word, destroy. Destroy, build back better. And to them, better means only a country in their image, in the radical left image of tyranny. Build it back. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. Look at what they've done. One last clip. This is from the Minnesota GOP chairman. His name is David Hahn. Take a look at what he talks about with regards to Tim Walz. Clip number 3.
When the news came that Kamala Harris had appointed Governor Walz, what were kind of your first thoughts? And when you think about Governor Walz's tenure as governor, what are the first things that kind of come to mind?
Partisan, divisive, very thin-skinned, mean-spirited. He does not like to be challenged. He does not like people to differ with him, and he can get angry if he thinks that you're not agreeing with him sufficiently. So I've been around Minnesota politics for a few years and worked with a lot of governors, Republican and Democrat. I was the minority leader in the Senate for 4 years, and I never was in office when he was governor, but just the way that he's handled himself and his refusal really to govern and respect the idea that half the state is Republican, which we are. We've got 8 congressional districts, 4 Republican, 4 Democrat. We've had pretty evenly divided legislative majorities in the Minnesota House and Minnesota Senate going back a number of years. In the 2022 elections, they won very, very narrow majorities by literally a few hundred votes, and then they governed as if they were California. So very divisive, very extreme partisan. To me, the classic example I point out is almost every governor, when they put together an election bill, and there's typically one every couple of years, they say they want it to be bipartisan. They want Republicans and Democrats to be on the bill, work on the bill. And Governor Walz said that. That's what he wanted. But when they got into power, they didn't do that. They didn't have to work with Republicans, so they didn't. There were no Republicans involved in the forming of that election bill, no Republican votes. That's never happened, in my opinion, my memory. So I use that as an example of the extreme partisanship that this guy represents. And he has catered to the progressive left-wing base of the Democratic Party in Minnesota, which I think if you have aspirations for a political future in Minnesota, you better kind of get in line with this left-wing base of the Democratic Party, and that he has done. It's very political.
Liberal, communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. This comes as no surprise to any of you who've watched this program for the last 4 years, have no interest at all in partnering and sharing power with the people or with other people in government. They will not. They'll talk a big game about it, especially during election years. We need bipartisan effort. We need a mutual agreement here to come to terms with one another and go forward together. They won't do it. They don't share power. They want total power. And once they're in, they accelerate the process of chaos and crisis so that they have dependent people who will then turn to the federal government, and they have them, they want them. And they do this in part by off free stuff. Create a little crisis, and the shutdowns of the Trump was president, but he didn't want to shut down the economy. It was cities mainly and the radical liberal communist socialist movement within the elected class of people who shut down the economies. Wreck it. Give people money. Give people the wherewithal to stay home and just drink adult beverages on their front porch. We'll give them money. And people took it, and people stayed home. And the wreckage of the economy is still not recovered from even today. The jobs market numbers that you continually hear about where Administrator Biden or Kamala Harris would brag about new jobs, they're not new jobs. They're rebound jobs. They're jobs that existed prior to the pandemic, but were shut down and wrecked by liberal communist socialist policies and are only now opening back up and getting filled. Tim Walz is a radical liberalized monster, both by virtue of his inaction and his silence with regards to what he did in Minnesota during those riots. He allowed the burning of Minneapolis and other cities throughout that state. Mr. Hahn in that clip claims that Minnesota to this day is still not fully recovered from that anarchy that was allowed to take place by Governor Tim Walz. Murder, rape, riots, looting, arson, and anarchy. Those are the earmarks of the administration of Governor Walz. And it's exactly the same kind of thing that he would bring to the federal government if he is, in fact, elected to office as vice president. They can try to paint him as a kindly old grandfather with a family who only wants to bring about joy and happiness. But I'm telling you, look what he's done. Look at what he's already done. Don't look at what they tell you he's going to do. Look at what he did in Minnesota. A summer of fire, burning, arson, and anarchy. They have no ability whatsoever to bring about joy and happiness. Everything about that radical left coalition of immorality brings about unhappiness and robs people of joy. American joy and happiness have been squelched by a radical left agenda whose only purpose and intent with open borders and illegal immigration is to dilute the American identity and to provide a new electoral base for this coalition of immorality, because they want to give them the right to vote, and they want to give them free money and free stuff and free health care because they think it'll entice them to vote for them. American joy and happiness have been squashed by a radical left agenda that purposefully and mercilessly causes inflation to rise and make the cost of living be unbearable. And American joy and happiness have been murdered by a radical left agenda that purposefully refuses to prosecute violent criminals with extreme prejudice and, in fact, lets monsters out early so they can go murder more Americans. Gun control? Nonsense. Gun problems and violence? Nonsense. It's a violent criminal problem, and they do not prosecute and put in prison violent criminals. I would put it, they want chaos. Every time a mass shooting happens in America, the radical liberal left agenda roars with joy, because finally it's another talking point. They can say that it's a gun problem and not the fact that we haven't prosecuted criminals to the full extent of the law. That's the problem. There are far enough laws on the books to curtail violent criminals if we just would prosecute them and keep them in jail for their full sentence rather than letting them out early. We don't need the cackler and the grandpa in office whose smiles and laughter only mock us and serve as an indication of their incompetence, their desire to try to fool us into accepting their candidacy, and that they want to somehow benefit America. Thank you very much. We can see right through it. It's false. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. They are a ticket of terror. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Listen, have a great weekend. Despite all of this, hope surrounds every one of you. You have a pack of blessings on your back. Believe it. For the Republic, ladies and gentlemen, cheers.